You're clean, aren't you? Except for your tower. You're a tower junkie, Roland.
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. If this is your first time listening, Tower Junkies is a podcast devoted to Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. We discuss the themes, characters, and mythology of the series in Palaver episodes, and review the books and comic series in Kef episodes. We also discuss King novels related to the Dark Tower, non-Tower King novels, TV and film adaptations of King's work, and the latest news about potential Dark Tower-related adaptations. You can find more of our work at TowerJunkiesPod.com and follow us on every level of social media at Tower Junkies Pod. I am your host, Matt Hurt, at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter, and with me today is Tiny, at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
Hello, folks.
Hi, Tiny. How's it going?
Wonderful.
Great. It's almost like we didn't just have a conversation like that.
Right?
Yeah, we recorded an episode of Obsessive Viewer, guys. So anyway, so this episode is a special, Doorway Cave episode. No, wait, this is Toadash. Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Yeah, can't even keep the category straight. This is a Toadash episode. Those are standalone review episodes covering movies and TV shows adapted from Stephen King's work, that aren't Dark Tower related adaptations. So this week we are going to be reviewing Gerald's Game from Mike Flanagan, the Netflix original movie that premiered on Friday, September 29th. So Tiny, I reviewed the book in was it Merlin's Grapefruit? I don't know what the things are.
Jeez.
In a category of the podcast. Yeah, yes, it was Merlin's Grapefruit last week. I reviewed the book. You haven't listened to that podcast yet. Yeah, so actually before all that, let's do a check-in.
Yes.
What is new with you in the world of King?
I have 2 check-ins.
Nice.
First one, I've got 100 pages left of The Dead Zone.
Nice.
Which I have read before, but I'm really glad I reread it because I had just forgotten so much of it. Mm-hmm. So I read it back in like high school.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. It's going great. I completely remember why it was my favorite Stephen King book for a while.
Yeah.
It's going great. I love it. It's really fun.
I'm really looking forward to talking to you about that, especially with the world.
Yes. It's very poignant.
Yes, yeah. It is. I'm really looking forward to talking to you about that.
Second check-in a fit of nostalgia and convenience, I got a library card at the Speedway Library.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which I had one from like decades ago that was no longer valid. Like I still had it, and like I took it in there. I was like, "Can I still use this?" And she was like, "No, this is like so old." So I got a new library card since I'm a resident now. It was free and everything,
nice.
And so I'm thinking I'm gonna, again for nostalgic reasons and for convenience reasons, hit their Stephen King section and read some of the books I want to read and need to read instead of just purchasing them.
That's really fascinating because I wonder how many copies of Stephen King books you're going to be reading that you're reading the exact same copies you read when you were in high school.
Oh gosh, that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
That'd be nuts. Ironically, I was there for work.
Oh, really?
We just, cause like sometimes we have to do paperwork for my job.
Oh, okay.
And so we don't want to just sit in our cars. So we'll just find a library somewhere nearby. And we happen to be on the west side. So I was like, hey, let's go to the Speedway Library.
Oh, nice.
And so we were there just working on paperwork.
Nice.
And so I didn't have time to go actually look at the Stephen King section and see what they have. But hopefully next time we record, I can report back and see if there's
very nice
some stuff that I'm going to put on the docket, if you will. So I'm looking forward to that. Plus you can rent DVDs. And,
right.
I mean, there's just all this. I think if you have, there's certain apps and stuff, like e-reader apps that you can get discounts on.
I think, and then they also have an audiobook app called Overdrive that I think, I don't know if Speedway is included in that, but I know Tony Troxel, from the Indiana Geeking podcast, he uses that. It's interesting because he said at one point that the wait list for the Drawing of the Three was like he's 15th in line for it.
Oh my gosh!
So that's good.
Crazy. So yeah, I know they have an app that they're associated with.
Nice.
I got some literature on it. They have like pamphlets and stuff. I was like, this is cool.
That's awesome.
So I haven't delved into that yet. Busy.
Sure.
All crap going on. So, but I'm again, hopefully I can report back in a few weeks or next time we record and let everybody know what kind of stuff what kind of benefits that has. So
nice.
I'm
and
excited.
it's funny because I used to spend a lot of time just browsing the Stephen King section of the library. Like when I was a kid, I don't even know if I'd read any. I think this is after I read The Shining, and then eventually I just kind of fell off. But I vividly remember like the exact section of the library where Stephen King books were.
Me too.
And like I remember like the different covers I saw, and it's just kind of screaming back to me.
Yeah. And also just a credit to the Speedway Library. It's a cool little library. And like while I was there, they had like if you want to use the computer and like use the internet, it's like you have to pay for it, but it's like $1 for an hour.
Oh yeah.
But there were people coming in, and like if you're applying for a job, you get to use it for free.
Oh, that's really cool.
I was like, that's awesome. Yeah. So there were like
Nice.
3 people that are applying for jobs. They're like,
wow.
I mean, if you're a resident, you get to use it for free automatically.
Right.
And you have a library card and stuff. But people who weren't residents and didn't have library cards, they could still use it for free if they're applying for jobs. So I was like, that's kind of nice.
That's really cool. And man, since I'm technically not a Speedway resident,
Right.
I'm shunned.
It's a bummer.
Yeah. What's the nearest library to here?
You'd probably have to use the city library, which is just north of downtown.
Oh.
I've heard it's really. I never actually been in there. They remodeled it a few years ago.
Okay, but I mean that's a drive.
It is. It's not
Yeah.
close. Yeah.
Huh. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying this this geography lesson of Indianapolis. But that's really
Municipal
interesting,
discussion.
right? But that's really interesting, Tiny, and I'm looking forward to hearing back about that.
Totes.
Those are your only 2 check-ins?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. So for me, I have about like Tiny, I have 100 pages left in Christine. And I kind of stopped reading it for a little bit because other stuff coming up. Like I had to deal with preparations for our Shocktober in Irvington event and a bunch of other stuff. So I read about probably 30 pages last night and got to the last 100 pages. So I should be finishing that up soon. We'll have an episode. I think I'm going to be soloing it, a review of the book, and then I think we're gonna come together and do a review of the movie as well.
Totes.
Yeah, and then and we're also going to do reviews of the Dead Zone book and the Dead Zone movie. But I also bought paperbacks of several of King's short story collections. So I bought basically I kind of went in order. I bought Night Shift. I have them on, like, I can see them on my bookshelf.
Skeleton Crew?
Yes, Skeleton Crew. I have a picture that I posted on Instagram, but I bought Night Shift, Skeleton Crew, different seasons, 4 Past Midnight, all in paperback, and I am super excited about those.
Sweet.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you had bought different seasons, right?
I have, yes.
Okay.
I bought different seasons.
It's interesting because you don't know anything about it.
Nothing.
Interesting.
I'm trying to read up on Castle Rock stuff because the series is coming out. Who the hell knows when?
I think the show is going to come out early next year.
Early next year.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which,
so yeah.
by the way, and we talked about them last time, but man, the Castle Rock TV podcast.
Yeah.
They're awesome. Did you listen to it?
I did listen to it. They gave us a shout out.
They gave us such a nice shout
It
out.
was very nice of them, yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah.
And despite their warnings, I think we're going to press on and talk about the Dark Tower for the rest of our lives.
Yes, we are.
But yeah, very nice. I love that show.
Yeah.
Castle Rock TV podcast. There's your shout out this week.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you again, guys, for giving us the shout out and pushing some of your fans onto us. We really hope we don't disappoint them.
Yes.
Yeah, because Chris and Skip, they have such a great dynamic.
They really do. Give me little gels.
A little bit, yeah. Not that it's
Yeah, I kind of made it sound like we have a shitty dynamic.
I know.
I didn't mean it that way.
It's not me, Tiny. It's you.
It is me.
No, Jesus Christ. Anyway, so I'm kind of getting back into the whole buying paperbacks of Stephen King and collecting a physical collection, which is terrible for my wallet and for my small ass apartment.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I started reading Night Shift, and I need to restart Jerusalem's Lot, the first short story in that, but I'm looking forward to just going through and reading the short story collections because I it's funny because I've never read one of his short story collections.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm just really excited to dive into his short stories.
Nice.
And then my final check-in for this week is that when was that? This was a couple weeks ago or a week or so ago. I made the hasty decision to start listening to 11/22/63.
Nice.
Yep, and this was just purely for fun for me. I'd finished up listening to a Game of Thrones, so I just threw on 11/22/63 because it's familiar, and I kind of wanted something to kind of listen to in the background, and something that wasn't for the podcast or anything, because we'll eventually do 11/22/63 at some point, but not anytime soon. But I kind of want to do it before the Castle Rock show since it's a Hulu adaptation. But anyway, yeah, and I'm just really loving it again. Like, this is one of my favorite King books, and I love the way that he tells the story.
Yeah.
And the audiobook is really good, but I'm a little bit over halfway through at this point. I'm trying to push through it so that I can, when I finish up, I can get to reading Sleeping Beauties, the new one from Stephen and Owen King.
Nice.
Which, are you aware of the premise for that?
Not at all.
Okay, do you want me to spoil it or anything?
Sure.
Or not spoil it, but tell you the premise?
Yeah, sure.
Basically the idea is, I guess Owen King, they were having, dinner or something together, and then Owen is just like, what about a story where every woman on the planet goes to sleep and doesn't wake up?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I'm just like, that sounds kind of amazing. Like, I don't know. It sounds really interesting. So
Wow.
I'm very curious how the story's gonna go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to.
That's a
jump into
bold
that one.
premise. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I could see that really not working.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean, we'll see.
Kind of similar to what would happen if a invisible dome just closed off an entire
That's
city.
true, yeah.
Yeah.
Or what happened if your cell phone turned you into a zombie?
Right.
Yeah.
Which that cell does still have the notoriety of being my least favorite Stephen King book I've
Really?
read.
Okay.
Yep. I'll reread it at some point, but I just was not a fan of it.
Yeah. I just thought it was okay.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, before we get to our actual review, the plot description courtesy of IMDb for Gerald's game is, while trying to spice up their marriage in their remote lake house, Jessie must fight to survive when her husband dies unexpectedly, leaving her handcuffed to their bed frame. And you can hear my thoughts on the book in the last episode of the podcast. Tiny, you have since read the book. Mm-hmm. What did you think of the book, Gerald's Game? And then we can go into our review of the movie.
I liked it. It has a very it's a very meandering story. I appreciated that. It reminded me a little bit of Doomickey because it's a very internal struggle. And so it kind of reminded me of that. And I liked most of Doomickey. The ending just got way too weird and sucked. But so I ended up enjoying the book a lot. I thought it was actually a really grounded story. Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to be this super existential internal monologue style book, and it ended up going not going necessarily a different route, but it was deeper than that. Mm-hmm. And it was a more extensive story than just that. And so as I was reading it, I was like, how are they going to make this a movie? It's a chick on a bed. Like, how's this going to happen? But obviously, by the time I finished reading the book, I was like, okay, you can do this. So I ended up enjoying the book a lot.
Nice.
It's not going to be. It doesn't currently hold like a top 10 Stephen King story thing for me, but the great thing about Stephen King is it can be top 100, and it's going to be pretty damn good.
Right.
So, yeah, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I thought it was a good book.
Very nice. For those who didn't listen to the review of it that I did, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought that it had some interesting things to say, and the places that it went were pretty surprising and interesting. You can listen to my full review of it on the most recent episode of the podcast before this one. So going into the movie, you said that you weren't sure how they were going to adapt it, and then by the end you were like, yeah, they can adapt it. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about the adaptation as an adaptation of the source material?
I thought it was really true to the book. And I think the differences that they had, in the book, she's kind of going through these internal mental debates that kind of display themselves as characters or people from her other walks of life. So like a friend from her past and like, this persona she's kind of invented for herself, the good wife, in the book. And I was just like, man, how, she's sitting there having a conversation inside her head. How's this going to work in the movie? And the way that they represented that in the movie, I think was a very good choice. It's different from the book, but it has the same sentiments and the same ideologies that are, it's the same dynamic. Mm-hmm. It's just with a different character, if you will. And it manifests itself in a very visually satisfying way. I think they pulled that off really well. I was worried about it. I thought it was just going to be goofy. But they totally pulled it off. And I think that's the biggest difference between the book and the movie. And I was totally happy and happy with that decision. And I think they took it in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Right from the outset, the first 20 minutes, the first 20 or 30 minutes when the changes when the deviations from the book came, I was like, I am so on board with these changes. Yeah. It is such a unique way it's such a kind of simple way to take the source material and make it into confine it to a feature length, visual representation. It's, because in the book she has different voices in her head to guide her through it. It's so simple the way that they do it. It really narrows it down while giving the same effect. Totally. And I really, to kind of go into our thoughts on the movie as a whole, I really liked how it didn't shy away from the more, the bigger moments of the book. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of two parts in particular that we'll have a spoiler review, after the non-spoiler review. Yeah. But man, the way that the story unfolds and the places that it goes, it honors the source material and honors King's very visceral way of telling just really jarring parts of a story. Mm-hmm. It honors it in a way that makes it really acceptable on the movie version of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really, I really respected what he did. And also, it's not really a spoiler, but part of the story involves an eclipse, and the cinematography in those scenes were it was jaw-droppingly beautiful and amazing. And the color palette was very vibrant, very vibrant colors in a movie that's so compartmentalized to just a couple locations. It's surprisingly deep from a visual standpoint. It could have just been a very straightforward work of cinematography, and camera work could have been very minimalist. But they went with some interesting... there was one part in particular that was, I think, somewhat Hitchcockian to me, which I appreciated quite a bit from multiple standpoints. I'll get into it. I mean, it's not really a spoiler part, but there's a moment where... well, I guess it is kind of a spoiler, so I'll hold off till we get to spoilers. But it had a very Hitchcockian tone to it, and I was impressed to see that in the movie. I wasn't really expecting it, so it was not not just a bare bones entry as far as the movie goes. They actually added quite a bit of there's a ton of artistic flair to the movie. I'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, and it's kind of hard to dance around the non-spoil, dance around the spoilers and everything, but it is. I was really, really into the movie, and it even enhanced some of the parts of the book that I thought didn't really resonate that hard or that much, or I felt like it could have done more. There were some parts of it that was really, really good, and having a character confined to a bed or to an enclosed space. I just read a bit of trivia that made me smile, but anyway, having a character confined to a short space or to a confined space or captive like that. I mean, it's stuff that we've seen in movies before. Ryan Reynolds movie where he's buried alive. Buried.
Yeah.
That 127 Hours.
Yeah.
And this
Saw
is
to an extent.
Saw to an extent.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, and that is such a tricky thing to convey.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with taking a narrative work from a book where you have inner monologue and everything over to the movie format and the film medium. It's really hard to do.
Totally.
And they really did a great job, and they simplified it in a way that made it very accessible and very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we can kind of stop dancing around. We can get to spoilers here in just a second. Overall thoughts, where does this rank with you with other Stephen King adaptations?
I feel like it's up there. I mean, because so many of his adaptations have to take so many different directions from the books because it's either someone's not brave enough to do it, or it's, quote unquote unadaptable, or it's just hard to do. And so it ends up being a little dissatisfying for that reason. But this was so true to the book, and just super. It's just a quality adaptation. Like, it was just good. I mean, they didn't cut corners anywhere. It wasn't cheap. The performances were great. It had good effects and everything. I mean, it was just a great adaptation, and it's up there. It's up there with some of the better Stephen King adaptations.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. I mean, this is a movie that I'll watch again. Oh man. Yeah, I'll get to this in spoilers, but there's one part where, I watched this last night around midnight, and I screamed.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure my neighbors fucking hate me now. But it was just so, and it honors the book in such a great way. I really want to see more from Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
More from, I never saw his movie Hush that got a lot of acclaim, but I would love to see him adapt another Stephen King work.
Yeah, Hush was a pretty solid flick. I enjoyed it.
Nice.
And I got some, that also has some, limiting factors to it, similar to Gerald's Game,
right?
That I think he did a good job with. So
nice.
Yeah, he's a talented filmmaker.
Sweet. And real quick before we get to spoilers, performances. Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood.
Absolutely. Yeah. First of all, fuck Bruce Greenwood. He's 61 and looks like he's 35.
Oh my God.
He's 61. The dude is shredded.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, as we were watching it, like as I was watching it, within like the first 5 minutes, I think I went to IMDb to see how old that dude was. 'Cause I was like, how the fuck? He's got a killer six pack. I mean, dude looks amazing.
Oh yeah.
For being 61. Not to say Carla Gugino doesn't. She's gorgeous. I don't even know how old she is, but she is. She's 46.
She's 46?
46.
Nice.
Damn near 50. She looks fantastic as well.
Oh, she looks amazing.
Yeah, she's beautiful. So, and they both did a great job. You know, we talked about how confined this story is to a few single locations, and, to be literally handcuffed to a bed. That's gotta suck as an actor. Yeah. I mean, that's just fit the physical toll that it takes. And then not to mention the struggles that the character goes through. She has to, she gets physically harmed, and she's dealing with dehydration and exhaustion and all that stuff. And that's just super physically tolling on an actor. So, her ability to act through all that, really shone through in her performance. And she's kind of playing dual timelines as well, and she's playing different aspects of the character. So she's kind of, in some scenes, she's dehydrated and her skin is all gray, and she's bruised up from being on a bed. And then another time she's dressed up and she's gorgeous. So, she played that really well. And then Bruce Greenwood, also kind of dual aspects of a character at different times. Did a great job. Bruce Greenwood is just a gem of an actor.
Oh, he is incredible.
And he's got such range. I mean, he's just a great actor. He goes so far beyond just being a character actor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of his.
Me too.
He did a great job here.
And his freaking voice. I mean,
yeah.
like I halfway through the movie, I went to Audible and was like, has he narrated any books?
He needs to.
Yeah, like he's done 2. I think one of them is an Ernest Hemingway book. The other one might be another one, but I would love to just, like, Audible needs to get him on a contract or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, Carla Gugino was amazing in this movie.
Yes.
Like you said, the physical toll and the way that she doesn't necessarily carry the whole movie. Like, I mean, she isn't forced to carry the whole movie because she does have those interactions with herself and Bruce Greenwood. But for a movie that relies solely on her being chained to a bed alone in a room, she knocked it out of the park.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, so we will go ahead and go into spoilers now, and we'll go into spoilers. I'll play a clip from the trailer. If you haven't seen or read Gerald's Game, come back later, or if you don't care about spoilers, or if you have seen it and read it, go ahead and keep listening. So here's a clip from the trailer.
You can pull till your wrists break. You're not getting out of those cuffs.
You're not real. You're not real. Little baby, don't say a word.
Focus. You've been sleepwalking since you were 12 years old.
That's a beautiful dress.
He put you in those handcuffs way before Gerald did.
You all right, Mom?
Everything you need to survive from the beginning. You just have to remember. Back off!
If you don't wake up, you're gonna die.
Okay, and we are spoilers on for Gerald's Game. And, so here we go.
I was disappointed that she was wearing the slip and not topless like in the book.
Oh, really? Perv.
Totally kidding. Totally kidding.
It's interesting. I mean, I don't want to say they can't do that, but because it's Netflix, but
Right.
It's interesting that they made that choice. It didn't bother me at all. It didn't add anything, but
yeah. I think it would have been distracting, honestly,
Right,
to just
yeah.
have her topless the whole freaking movie.
right. But man, can we talk about the scene where I screamed?
Yes, which I'm curious.
The way that it's described in the book is that her skin was peeling like a glove.
Yes.
In the visual represent, like that is,
Yeah,
oh my God, that was so well done.
it was.
And they did not shy away from it.
They
and
didn't.
I respect the hell out of the movie for that.
Absolutely.
But also fuck that movie because that was really hard to watch. It's funny because Tony Troxel, who's been on the podcast before, he had talked about how he was uncomfortable reading the beginning of the Drawing of the Three because what happens at the beginning of the Drawing of the Three is stuff that he doesn't like reading because he has a hard time separating his emotional connection with what's going on. So when someone's maimed or anything, it's hard for him to compensate with that or to reconcile that in his brain.
Okay.
I just imagine him watching this movie and freaking out.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because
Yeah, I made an audible sound. I think I was just like, oh, I think I did one of those, but I wasn't like freaking out or anything. But yeah, you could like feel it with the visuals combined with the sound.
Yeah.
The sound gets you too.
You can see like the tendons and
Yepers.
So, yeah, I was very thankful that I have both hands.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really intense and just was really well done. The other thing is that I appreciate that the movie did not sugarcoat or remained true to the book with the molestation subplot, like, because that's one of the things that I wasn't expecting in the book, and I loved. I didn't love it, but I was really interested in it as a piece of character development because it really brought together the character of Jessie Burlingame in that she's this person that's, as it said in the movie, she had the handcuffs on her from the moment she was 12.
Right.
And the whole story is about her dealing with her father, and then dealing with Gerald, and then I loved like in the book, I loved that the culmination of it was her confronting Joubert, the killer.
Yeah.
At the end, like I loved that because that was because her father and Gerald are both dead, so this is her confronting her abuse, like basically transplanting the abuse onto the killer that she escaped from. Mm-hmm. And I love that, and I thought that it was done really well in the movie.
Totally.
But what did you think of the whole eclipse and the father molestation thing?
I agree. I think it was well done in the movie, and it wasn't gratuitous or grotesque, but you knew what was going on. I mean, it was, they, like you said, they didn't shy away from it.
Right.
And, I think in the book, the metaphor, I don't know if it's a metaphor, but the juxtaposition of the molestation during a literal eclipse, is a much more potent metaphor or visual exercise when you're watching a movie, because
absolutely.
Like in the book, it didn't register with me as well. But seeing it in the movie, I was like, that's a really, darkness is literally taking over your happiness. Right. It's like the darkness is literally taking over the sunshine. And later in the movie, she says we need to let the sun out, internally, anyways. Where it's time for some sunshine or something like that. And I was like, that's, it's a very on the nose metaphor.
Right.
It's maybe not the most creative thing, but it's, again, just the way that it's visually represented in the movie, I think was just satisfying.
Oh, absolutely.
I just appreciated that.
And like the kind of trade-off of that, I don't remember in the book if it's as strict a metaphor as that, like as the sun's been hiding this whole time, or sun's been blocked her whole life. But I remember in the book it being more that it happened during the totality of the eclipse, and that like every time we flash back to it, it's during the eclipse, and it's not until it doesn't end until the eclipse ends. And I like the trade-off of that because, like you said, it's very. First of all, it's visually stunning. Like the eclipse, those are freaking beautiful shots.
Really well done.
And I like the metaphor of her coming out from the totality of the eclipse and the memory of her in captivity of her abuse. And man, that scene in the bedroom, like in the book. Yes. In the book, and I mentioned this in the review. In the book, when she says that what he did during the eclipse isn't like
it's not as bad as what he did in the bedroom.
Yeah, it's not as bad as what he did in the bedroom. And like there are like 20 or 30 pages or however many pages separating like that in the book, and I'm like thinking like what could he possibly done? Like oh my god.
Yeah.
And like what actually happens and what happens in the movie is that he manipulates her into carrying this for the rest of her life and everything. And I'm like in the book I hated him so much. Yeah. And it was done really well in the movie. Like that carried over really well.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I agree with you 100%, but I think I had a different reaction to it because in the book I didn't pick up on it as much. Like I understood that he was manipulating her and it was terrible and you could totally consider it to be worse than what he did to her on the swing or on the during the eclipse.
Right.
You can totally make that argument. But I think in the movie, it hit home a little harder for me, and like pretty much full credit goes to Henry Thomas.
Yeah,
because his body language during that. It's like you can see the manipulation.
Yes.
As a full-grown adult, you're like, "Oh my fucking god, what?"
Right.
But as a 12-year-old, she doesn't get it.
Right.
She doesn't understand that he's manipulating her. Right.
And it even starts on the swing when he's like, "Oh no, that's stupid. It's stupid." And kind of leading her to it.
Yes.
And it's just knowing what's to come. I was just like, "Oh, just it."
Right.
It was so just unsettling.
Gross. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, in that scene where they're sitting on the bed in the bedroom, and he's just like. Kind of looking over like should we tell though, and just like man, it's evil. It's just evil.
Oh yeah.
And I that moment in the bedroom meant a lot more, or was a lot more potent for me personally in the movie than it was in the book.
Sure.
I'm not going to say that it was better than the book, because honestly, I can't make that distinction. But
right.
For me personally, it hit home a little harder in the movie. So seeing his body language and the way he structured his words in the movie, I was just like, that fucker, man. I was like mad and like and just disgusted. And yeah, he mad props to Henry Thomas for that performance. That was good. Yeah, so I think that right there speaks to how good the adaptation is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
That and what I noticed was kind of funny when I looked it up. If I'm not mistaken, he played Elliot in E.T., which I thought was pretty interesting.
Right.
I haven't seen E.T. since I was probably 12.
Fucking terrifying movie. Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, and he was in like Gangs of New York too.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, he's best known for Elliot.
But yeah, his body language in that scene, and I love the culmination of that when she escapes and she's confronting that memory. How she mentions that. Oh, what does he say to her? He says he can't like he says that he did something bad or he did something despicable or something, and like she makes the distinction that he turned away when he said that, because when he could lie to her face, but when he says the truth, he can't look her in the eye.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that is such a powerful moment in that scene.
Totally.
And, oh man, just, I really respect that cause, you know, Stephen King's adaptations, they have such a long track record of filmmakers either completely missing the point or watering down the story or what have you. There's such a long track record of that, which we'll eventually get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Obviously. But I just love it when a story takes the essence of, when a filmmaker takes the essence of the story, gets the source material, and just puts their own spin on it in a way that still honors the original source material. I respect the hell out of that.
Absolutely. Me too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
I think it's just something I noticed. Kate Siegel is an actress in the movie. She plays Jesse's mother in the flashbacks.
Okay.
She's Kate Siegel is married to Mike Flanagan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she was the star. She was the female lead in Hush and everything.
Oh, I see.
It's really it really jumped out to me, and I don't know how this could be intentional. It really jumped out to me how much she looks like Carla Gugino.
Yeah.
Like I was they looked a lot alike. Her mother and then adult Carla Gugino look a lot alike. And I was like, holy crap, that's just good casting. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just like, holy crap, how'd that even happen? You know? So I don't know. That just jumped out at me for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I had kind of picked up on that a little bit too. At least now that you say that, it's just definitely kind of screaming back to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's see, anything else to so the kind of inner monologue or the depictions of like
it's
Gerald and
like
her
dueling consciousnesses.
Oh yeah,
words. Yeah, and it, you know, it's I think a lot of people will kind of miss, people who watch the movie will kind of miss the fact they'll interpret it as like an angel and a devil on the shoulder, you know, kind of scenario, but it's really not. It's more of like self-doubt and like insecurity manifested in Bruce Greenwood and his you know, Gerald, as like, no, this isn't going to work. You're a failure. Just go to sleep and die. And then the kind of, you know, the strong side of her conscious that wants to fight. It's almost like fight or flight, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Manifests itself in these two almost apparitions, if you will. I thought that was interesting. And, you know, in the book, it's different. You kind of, she has like, part of her strength, like her strength kind of manifests itself as like a friend of hers who was like a strong feminist in her past, and then her you know, subtle side, or her you know,
her kind of
insecurities.
Yeah, she's like the goody wife.
The good wife,
Yeah.
right? Kind of, it's this good wife character who tells her like, "Oh, don't do that. What will people say?" I think that worked great in the book, and I'm not saying that they needed to do that for the movie or what. I just think it was. I think they transferred those ideas very well onto those two other manifestations.
Streamlined it really well.
Definitely.
Yeah, and also gave us a chance to see more Bruce Greenwood.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is great.
I was thinking that when I was watching the trailer. I was like, man, is he just going to be in the first 10 minutes?
I was wondering that too.
That'd be wasting some Bruce Greenwood.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The dog, man.
Yeah, dogs did a great job.
Oh yeah, he did a great job. First of all, and I'll save the other one for later, obviously. Well, no. I'll talk about that later. We'll end the review with that. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. The dog. So in the book, one of my kind of not necessarily gripes, but one of my things that I was kind of iffy about with the book was that I felt like there was a lot of build up to the dog eating Gerald, and like I was like primed to just be really grossed out by it and all that, and I kind of felt like in the book it didn't really. I mean, he takes a couple bites out of him and doesn't really do much else.
Right.
But the movie, like, it's a constant thing that he's there and he's eating, like, taking pieces of him, and it's so gross and fascinating. I
think they missed the mark on that a smidgen because in the beginning of the movie, she gives the dog some steak, and so I feel like that kind of spoils the fact that the dog, like 5 hours later, the dog comes in there to eat him. Like the dog is supposed to be absolutely starving and like, willing to do anything to survive and get some food. So it degrades itself to eating this person. Yeah. And it's like a reluctant thing, like, hey, I don't want to do this, but I have to, or I'm going to die.
Yeah. There's a part in the book that talks about how Prince, the dog.
Yeah, Little Prince.
How I think it was her perspective that she could see him fighting through the domestication.
Yes.
To get to the point where he will eat it.
Right.
And I do feel like that was a little lost in translation for the adaptation.
It's minor. It's not a big deal at all.
Yeah, it didn't really need it. Now that you say that he needed the meat, or that she already gave him the meat.
Yeah.
It would have been so simple to just have them just get the meat back and like have him not fed, and that could be like the reason why. Like I don't know why they made that choice.
Yeah, I don't know.
It almost made Gerald seem more likable, which I don't know, kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, I really wanted to try that meat though.
Yeah, the Kobe beef.
Bruce Greenwood's. Oh no. Yeah, the Kobe beef. Yeah.
Oh, you wanted to bite Bruce Greenwood?
Yeah, his arm.
Oh, okay.
No, not really.
It's not weird at all?
No.
Get the fuck out of here.
Anyway, no, you're fine. You're just marinating here. Anyway, so the dog part, that was good. So what did you think of the Moonlight Man?
Yeah, that's what I was going to come to next.
Yeah.
I played by Carol Stryken, a Danish, Dutch, Dutch. Yeah, Dutch guy.
Okay.
He's a giant. He's over 7 feet tall.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so I've seen him in other stuff before, and I was like, oh, that guy. Huh. Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I was kind of looking at his IMDb. He's an interesting dude. He's almost 70 years old.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
He was scary in this movie.
Oh, he was terrifying.
Especially his first appearance, where he's just chilling in the corner. That was scary.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad I didn't watch this at night. Like, I watched it this afternoon. It was light out and everything. That was genuinely scary. And I thought he was a good representation of that character. I think he did a great job, and
absolutely
didn't have to say a lot, but
right.
If you look at his IMDb, it's funny. He's like, I basically just play a bunch of monsters that don't ever say anything. It's kind of funny. Nice. And so that's a bit of a token for him. But he was great. I thought he was scary. I didn't have a great visual image of what the Moonlight Man looked like when I was reading the book. So to see him in the movie was potent. I mean, it jumped out. I thought that was well done, and he was scary. Nice,
and I agree. I did have kind of I had an idea in my head, like I had a visualization in my head of what he looked like based on King's description and everything, and I was fully prepared and expecting the movie to just totally skimp on that and just have him be this mysterious figure and not like deformed and strange looking. I was so prepared for that, and I'm very surprised and pleased that they didn't skimp on that.
Yes.
Like everything else that I've said about this movie honors the source material really well. And that is something that one of my issues with the book actually was that the whole Jabber thing kind of comes out of nowhere. It's like she escapes and it's like, oh, there's this guy and everything. And it comes together well at the end, but I kind of wish that there was something a little bit more of a through line throughout it.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah, but in the movie, it worked really well. And we have that little piece of radio announcement beforehand that's kind of cliche and cheesy.
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's acceptable. I give it a pass for that.
Right. Yeah, I think they could have, with Jabber, they could have gone way too far and been over the top. Or they could have been, like you said, just way too subtle and just kept him in the shadows and unassuming or not very memorable. Yeah. But they found a good balance there.
Totally.
I was worried it was going to be over the top.
Yeah.
But
and I like the ending where she I think that her encounter with him in the courtroom is actually an improvement over the book, because in the book she spits at him.
Right.
And I thought that's a good moment for her. That's her culmination of her, she's putting her demons aside and she's doing that. But I like that it has that it calls back to the earlier scene where she just says, like, you're not as big as I thought you were, or something like that. And it goes back to her at the cabin with her family in the flashback. I thought that was a nice way to tie that together, and
totally
a way that was a little cleaner than the book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see, anything else that we should talk about? Because I want to talk about some Stephen King references.
Okay,
but I'll do that after the review.
Yeah, I don't really. There's nothing else that I think really needs to be brought up. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, Gerald's Game is on the Netflixes, and I don't want to speak for you, Tiny, but I recommend the book. It's a good read.
I recommend both.
Yep,
book and the movie.
Samesies. Very
good.
Oh yeah. So let's kind of wind down and talk about. I picked up on 3 Stephen King references.
3. I remember 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
The first. Oh, yeah. I'm sure I know the second one that you didn't get, but the first one was obviously Cujo.
Yeah.
I thought that was. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, that was good.
The second one, I'll save the big one for us.
Right.
At the end, but the second one was. Have you ever seen or read Dolores Claiborne?
No. Okay,
me neither.
Okay.
But having seen this movie, I really want to.
Okay.
And having read Gerald's Game, I really want to as well, because my understanding of Dolores Claiborne is that it takes place during the eclipse.
Oh, okay.
In this book. So they're tied together in that way. Huh. And I don't know much about Dolores Claiborne. I just know that Kathy Bates played her in the movie, and that it's something about a woman that wants to murder someone.
Okay.
But the description in Gerald's Game, the movie, where Jessie is talking about how she had a dream where she was in a well and a woman was over her. I think that's Dolores Claiborne.
Okay.
Yeah. Huh. So that made me really eager to read Dolores Claiborne.
Okay. Yeah.
So those were 2 of them.
That's the one I didn't pick up on.
Okay, I figured.
Yeah.
So the other one is Bruce Greenwood says all things serve the beam.
He sure did.
I was so happy.
I know.
Yeah.
And they didn't dwell on it or anything. No. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I don't know why the fuck he said it. Why would he say that?
And I imagine people who don't know the Dark Tower would be like, that's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, exactly.
It's because it has no connection whatsoever.
None.
But I had a big smile on my face.
Yeah.
I had seen a headline somewhere where someone was like, did you catch the Dark Tower reference in Gerald's Game? And I was like looking at that, I was like, while watching the movie, I was like, I hope I don't miss it. I was thinking it was going to be something I don't know, just something a little throwaway thing, which it was kind of a throwaway thing.
Right.
But that's a deep cut Dark Tower reference.
Totally.
Really, really appreciated that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And if the Dark Tower ever gets adapted, maybe,
Yeah.
Still raw.
Cheers.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like that.
Absolutely.
Yep. So yeah, I don't think there were any other Stephen King references that I could pick up on.
Yeah, not that I picked up on.
Yeah, if you know of any, write into us at, I never say the email address. Like, I need to update that. You can email us at, either matt@obsessiveviewer.com or tiny@obsessiveviewer.com. Mm-hmm. Or, of course, go to facebook.com/towerjunkiespod, instagram.com/towerjunkiespod, Twitter @towerjunkiespod.
Cool.
So, yeah, that does it for this episode of Tower Junkies. So I have a schedule for what we're going to do next. I think next week, since Tiny is getting married, we are going to have an episode where... Oh yeah! Oh my God! Yeah, next week is a good next week's a good episode. Don't have to slum it with Tiny. No, next week is very exciting because we're going to have the cast and crew of The Man Who Loved Flowers, one of Stephen King's Dollar Babies that was filmed here in Indianapolis in Greenfield, Indiana. We're going to have the director. I'm going to interview him, and I'm going to have a bunch of different interviews with the cast and crew. So have that'll be out next week, and then the week after we should have me and Tony Troxel talking about the Gunslinger. So we'll get back into some Dark Tower talk.
Nice.
Yeah, and obviously, contact us if you want to talk to us about anything Stephen King or Dark Tower related. Also, if you have found one of my business cards in Indianapolis, let me know so I know that I'm not wasting them, just sticking them in books.
Yeah.
Because I would be very interested to know if you listened to it because of that.
Yeah.
Anyway. Or text me because, I have my phone number on it. Anyway, I think that'll do it.
That'll do it, yep.
All right, well, long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
Thank you for listening to Tower Junkies, a Dark Tower podcast presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at TowerJunkiesPod.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or anywhere else podcasts are found. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can find ways to do that at TowerJunkiesPod.com/donate or become a patron for Obsessive Viewer at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer for recurring donations with different reward tiers. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can contact us by emailing us at matt@obsessiveviewer.com or by tweeting us at TowerJunkiesPod or at ObsessiveViewer and at ObsessiveTiny. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod. For more podcast content from ObsessiveViewer.com, check out Anthology, my solo side project podcast where I'm reviewing The Twilight Zone as a first-time viewer and exploring other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology television shows. You can find Anthology at anthologypod.com and anywhere podcasts are found. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the app of your choice. Once again, thank you for listening to Tower Junkies, and we'll see you next time.